Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so today we're jumping right into one of the biggest debates happening in AI development at this very moment, and that is, should you be building with free-form agents or with structured workflows? Now, this is a question that's really splitting opinions, but as we're going to see, the answer might just be, well, why not both?
Yeah, this whole conversation pretty much exploded after a couple of key papers dropped from some major AI labs. I mean, if you're a builder, you almost certainly saw the commotion on Twitter, right? It became this real flashpoint, with developers all over the place trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to move forward here?
So on one side of this, you've got Anthropic. They published this super detailed guide that was all about praising structured workflows, and it had these great diagrams, really clear stuff. But then, on the other side, OpenAI drops this research paper that, a lot of people saw as a direct shot against that whole idea. Some even called it an anti-workflow blast. It really muddied the waters and left a ton of developers kind of scratching their heads, wondering what was really going on.
All right, so this debate prompted some, let's call them hot takes from our source speaker, and they really get to the heart of what it's like to be a builder in this space. So let's dive into those.
Okay, hot take number one, it's basically a plea to the big model providers saying, don't be that guy. And we all know the type, right? The person who thinks they know the one and only right way to build something and lectures everyone about it. For a lot of developers, this felt a little too familiar, like a repeat of what happened in web development over the last decade, where just a few big companies got to dictate all the rules.
And the second hot take? This one's aimed squarely at the tools themselves. The argument is, are some of these really complex frameworks actually a step backward? Are they making it harder, not easier, for us to build solid, robust applications?
He's talking specifically about APIs that make you think in terms of nodes and edges, where you're manually wiring everything together. For a lot of developers, seeing code that looks like this, it gives them flashbacks. They're thinking about these older, powerful, but let's be honest, notoriously difficult frameworks from back in the day.
And this brings up a really, really important question for anyone building software, especially if you're working on a team. I mean, do you and your entire team really need to go learn graph theory just to build a basic application? The argument here is a pretty firm no. That seems like overkill, right?
Instead, the push is for a pattern that's more grokkable. And what that means is, it's just instantly understandable. You can look at it and get it. It's code that you can just read from top to bottom and see the exact flow of logic. Anyone on the team should be able to look at it and maintain it. And that kind of readability, it's not just a nice to have. It is absolutely essential.
Okay, so now that we have the context for this pretty fiery debate, let's get down to business. Let's really define what we're talking about here. What exactly are agents? And what are workflows?
And to make this super clear, our source gives us two just brilliant analogies. First, think of an agent like a turn-based game. Simple, right? You take a turn, then the AI takes a turn, back and forth. Now, for a workflow, think of the technology tree from a strategy game like Civilization. As you'll see, each of these gets its power from a totally different place.
So, the agent, it's all about that back and forth interaction. It's my turn, then it's your turn. I do something, it responds. Maybe it decides to use a tool, maybe it looks something up in its memory, and it's that really simple loop that unlocks its power, leading to these amazing emergent properties that start to feel a lot like real intelligence.
A workflow, on the other hand, is totally different. It's all about dependencies and control. Think of it like a rules engine. And just like in that Civilization tech tree, you have to discover bronze working before you can even think about researching iron working. Step A must happen before step B. And this rigid structure gives you a whole different set of emergent properties, like branching logic, running things in parallel, and this is a big one, the ability to replay a process and see exactly what happens step by step.
And that last point, being able to replay a process, it's absolutely critical. The speaker makes the point that because non-determinism, that kind of inherent unpredictability, is at the very core of AI, being able to trace your steps and replay them is like 10 times more important in AI engineering than it ever was in traditional software engineering. 10 times! That's huge! So if agents give you all this creative power and workflows give you this reliable, traceable control, which one should you choose?
Well, the core argument here is that
That's actually the wrong question to be asking. You don't have to choose. Really, it's all about trade-offs. It means you can look at your application and decide, piece by piece, okay, this part here needs the creative, sometimes unpredictable power of an agent. But this part over here, it needs the rock-solid, reliable control of a workflow. You can start with that raw power, and then anywhere things start to go off the rails, that's where you inject control. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. Because these two things aren't separate. They're designed to be composed, to be mixed and matched. So you could have an agent act as one single, powerful step inside a bigger structured workflow. Or you could do the reverse. You could package up an entire workflow and give it to an agent as a tool that it can call on. You can even have agents call other agents. The real magic happens when you stop seeing them as opposites and start seeing them as powerful building blocks you can combine.
Okay, let's make this super practical. So imagine you have an agent, and its job is to analyze a huge medical PDF and pull out, say, 12 different symptoms. Now, trying to do that with one giant single call to the model, it's going to be unreliable, it's going to fail sometimes. So what's the solution? You add structure. You create a workflow that makes 12 smaller, much more targeted calls, one for each specific symptom. That's how you engineer for reliability.
And you can get even more creative and advanced with this. For example, we all know that agents can get confused or just fail if you give them too many tools to choose from at once. It's like analysis paralysis. So, here's a clever pattern. You can use a workflow to act as a sort of manager. It can dynamically hand the agent only the specific tools it needs for the task right in front of it. And by doing that, you can dramatically increase its chances of success.
All right, all of this brings us to our final and maybe the most important takeaway. It's really a philosophy for how we, as builders, should approach our work in this incredibly fast-moving field.
And this quote right here, it just nails the core message for every single builder out there. We are a community of practice, not a community of theory. What that means is, the stuff we're all building in the real world, it's just evolving way faster than the academic theory can possibly keep up.
So the big takeaway here is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly empowering. If your agent works perfectly fine with 20 different tools, even if some research paper says that's way too many, then guess what? Your practice is what's right. Trust your results. In that case, it's the theory that needs to catch up to you, not the other way around.
So how do you actually figure out the best pattern for your project? Well, the best way is often the simplest one. Try to explain your architecture to a friend or a colleague. Get up and draw it on a whiteboard. Just the act of trying to articulate it out loud, that's what will expose the weak spots. And once you see them, you can ask those key questions. Okay, where is my application unreliable? And how could I add a little more structure to that specific part to make it better?
So as you go out there to build the next generation of amazing AI applications, remember, the real question isn't about which side of this debate is right. It's about finding your own unique mix. It's about looking at your project and asking, where do I need the creative, emergent power of an agent? And where do I need the rock-solid, predictable control of a workflow? The best answer? Well, that's the one that you're going to build.